Thank you so much, John, for the introduction. Hello, how are you? I hope everybody is doing well. I'm very happy to be here, so please don't mind the trembling in my voices. I'm coming from Romania. I should have the presentation. Okay. And this is the country that has given the world the most famous vampire. And no, this is not Ceausescu. He was the cruelest communist dictator. Unfortunately, we had him too. But we have also some positive people hanging by. For instance, we have Prince Charles of Great Britain from every now and then. Actually, he's coming quite often to Romania. He likes it very much. He's enjoying our food. He's enjoying the beautiful landscape of Romania. And he's enjoying the traditional architecture. And this is my cup of tea, too. I fell for old buildings and restoration techniques since I was a student in faculty, and I was lucky enough to get involved in the UNESCO conservation project. And my strongest memory back then is that I was freezing, despite the hot summer, in the dungeons of an old monastery, while I was executing the measured drawings of the stone walls of that monastery. I enjoyed the whole thing so much that I have decided to continue working in this field, and not only working, but to make the experience a bit more academic. So, I have now a Master in Preservation of Monuments. I have a PhD running, actually. I'm not yet, I'm just a candidate. So I think you see from the images that it's all about hard work. That's all it's required. When it comes to school, I also stood on the other side of the table in the classroom because somebody thought that the students might learn something from working with me. So I've been a project instructor. I think it's like, I don't know, helping students during their studios. I think this would be the equivalent for GSD. So I've been doing that for a while too. Outside school, my playground was, I found my playground actually in Transylvania. Transylvania, this is the map of Romania. And Transylvania is, maybe I could use this part. I haven't put it any borders to show where Transylvania is because the historians are still fighting on the topic and I don't want to get involved. The little dots that you barely see there, these are the 200, actually more than 200 fortified churches. They are all there, all together. You can see a high density on a very small area. And they all come in different sizes and shapes. And this monument, this fortification, were built by colonists of German origin, starting with the 12th century. Although I haven't seen these pictures, or I haven't seen this monument from the airplane, as the pictures show, I was equally impressed by seeing them on foot. And this was my work, or part of my work in the last years. But coming back to this monument, so they were built, they look beautiful, they have this amazing historic settlement still preserved around them. What happened then? After the revolution in 1989, when the borders finally opened, the migration changed course, so the immigrants, the colonies that once came to Romania left the country. So from 200,000 ethnic Germans we had in Romania, now are barely 13,000 left. The president of the country is one of them, actually. And this is not the only problem. Another thing is that not only the Germans are leaving the building, but many young people do the same, especially from the rural areas, from small towns. These places don't offer too many opportunities for young people. Probably it's a common problem all over the world. I don't think it's something very specific to Romania. So they live to seek for better wages, for a better life, maybe. Part of the consequences of people leaving are this. There are, of course, many more. I will come back to this a little bit later. Now, what do I do, me personally, about all this? And I would like to start with the real preservation, serious architectural work. One of my main responsibilities in the last year was to repair and to maintain these buildings, or to help people do that. So I've been on site a lot, I've been traveling a lot, and I love this about my job. I've been out of the office very often, and that was great. So I go on site, I make the first evaluation of the building, I make the prioritization of the works depending on the urgency, because it's never enough money to do everything that you want to do, so you have to prioritize a little bit. I do fundraising, construction site supervision, so basically everything. We were working all the time in a very small team, so we have to be very flexible. These images I'm showing you, it's a fortified church that has been repaired in a project, a very interesting project actually. It was a cooperation. We received a grant from the US Ambassadors Fund for Culture Preservation, and we received help in kind from students from the technical school in Munich, so they work there. And finally, we had all kinds of people just coming in, being very interested in what's happening, showing their support, trying to help with something. We had our detractors too, of course. But finally, altogether, it was a very, very good project, and I was lucky enough to coordinate this. There are many examples of monuments we already repaired, and they are more or less in a good shape. Then the question is, what do you do next? If you look around, what do you see around these fortifications? And then you see old buildings, empty buildings that are falling apart, buildings that nobody can or will build these days. And then you see new buildings like this. They are being erected without any insight, without any relation to the local tradition and to the local values. I don't know about you, but I think this requires some good design, this type of constructions. So maybe you know a good design school to step in. What else I can do to tackle this situation? Because in this case, in this particular case, repairing and maintaining, it's not the case. So I've been offering consultancy. I went on the field. I was talking with the people, owners of the historic buildings, inhabitants, people who were planning to buy a house or sell one, and trying to convince them to look differently at their environment. I also been involved in several awareness-raising campaigns. One stands particularly in my mind. We had, besides the regular information materials like flyers, brochures, roll-ups, and so on, we had activities for children in school, and we also have some activities for mayors, and we had a theater play, and that was the absolute hit. I'm not sure if after the theater play the things really changed in good for the inhabitants, but they really enjoyed that time, so they will still remember. If I meet them, they ask, when do you come again with the theater? I mentioned activities for the mayors. This is a pretty difficult category of people to reach. They are always busy. Nevertheless, since they apparently have something to say when it's coming to city design, I think it's important to work with them. And I was thinking, they don't have the appropriate education or preparation to tackle city design in general, especially not in Romania, and especially not in small cities, small villages where they don't have any planning professional next to them. So I thought, why not to take a model that works pretty well in the US, from what I know, and to test it back home and to see what happens. So we had the first ever Romanian chapter of the US Mayors Institute on City Design, and it went great. We had an American mayor. He met three of his colleagues, his Romanian colleagues. They were talking, sharing experience, sharing stories. We had also some specialists in architecture, urban planning, law, European funding, and it was absolutely fantastic and never been organized since. No. I know, I will try to go back to that. But I stayed in the field because I felt there is a potential to move things in the right direction. And my affection for public administration stayed undiminished in the next years when I got involved in the making of the new development guide for the city of Sibiu. This is the city I lived in the last 8 years. It's the most beautiful in Romania, I would say, and probably everybody would agree with me, or almost everybody. It is in southern Transylvania, so it's in the same historic area I was showing you before. And to this beautiful, historic, well-preserved city, if you add a rich cultural life, you'll understand why it was elected or selected in 2007 to be the European cultural capital. Something else about me, I don't know how important it is, but I really like puzzle games. And I'm telling you this for a reason. Although it's boring, maybe, I don't know, I like it. Same principle from the puzzles apply in my professional life. I like to bring people, ideas, interests together to create a picture, an image that makes sense. So let me give you an example about how this works, or it worked for me up to now. I have a good friend, and I was constantly nagging her about the great opportunity the fortified churches offer. So at one point, probably to get rid of me, she said, okay, come and make a presentation, a short presentation at the Technical University in Vienna. So I did. The presentation wasn't short, but people liked it. And some months later, in the fall, I think it's studio called, or fall term, I'm not sure, when the students have to go on field to make some practical work, they have chosen, 30 of them have chosen Transylvania. So they spent there 2 weeks. And after two weeks, they were researching and working on a fortified church. And after 2 weeks, we had a wonderful documentation. We had measured drawings of very accurate ones of the church. We had the historical study. They identified the construction phases of that church. They made in-depth damage analysis and so on. So now we have a very good basis to start a restoration project, or whoever wants to start repairing that church has a very good basis to do so. And besides this, my good friend I was talking about, probably she got the bug, I don't know, she couldn't stand still either. So she took one church in custody. So now she's like, I don't know, castle keeper or something. She lives in the former parish house. She adopted the village and the village adopted her. She's taking care of the church, doing activities with the kids. So she's happy and she's still talking to me. I guess everything is still okay. That's all positive, and it's so nice when you meet people who speak the same language and you say, wow, this is so important for me, I think it's so beautiful, and they say, yes, indeed. What do you do when you meet somebody who doesn't care that much? Last year I had a very interesting experience. I met a former ambassador to Romania, and he was very reluctant to understand why historic buildings are valuable. They are just old. Why do we always stick to the old? So I started to wonder, maybe the potential, the historic potential, or the potential of the historic places in Romania, maybe it's only in my mind and in the mind of some enthusiasts, and not everybody is sharing this impression. So what about asking people who are not related to the country? What about asking people who are not related to architecture and conservation? I started with the first one, people who are not related to the country, so I managed to organize a workshop. And who do you think I got for the workshop? A Loeb Fellow. And the potential is there. So if a Loeb Fellow says that heritage has potential, it must be that. So I'm happy. And all this brings me to why I'm here, to my Loeb year. I feel about build heritage that it's a chance for us to remember who we are. And It's a chance for us to be able to build a better future, or the decent future for us. If we don't know about our past, and if we don't respect the past, then, I don't know, the future won't look that good. That's my impression. I also think that the built heritage has some, leaves some open space for economic growth, for economic development, based on the local identity. And when I speak about local identity, I don't mean only cultural tourism, which is very important, of course, it's a big part, but I want to look beyond cultural tourism. I have read an article the last days, and it was written there with very fancy words. I would never thought of them, but it was basically what I'm trying to do, to get out of my comfort zone, to meet new people, to have new experiences, and then to bring these new ideas, or better said, to translate these new ideas into my familiar context. They call this, I have to read this, sorry, brokering info between networks. Actually, I think this is the essence of the whole Loeb Fellowship, basically. So how do I try to do this? I feel there are some missing dots between new technologies and preservation. And these missing dots could be translated in economic development. I'm pretty sure that good design is required. I don't see other good way of doing that. And this is the goal for my year. I want to discover these dots and, with some luck maybe, even to connect them. So that's my challenge and that's my goal. And you might wonder why I'm focusing on new technologies and preservation. Well, we Romanians, we love new technologies. We love especially communication system and technologies. We love to talk all the time, as easy and as fast as possible. This is an app we developed for the landscape of fortified churches. If you're interested, you can download it in the App Store and Google Play. Almost everybody has a satellite dish on the house, even the most humble ones. So this is not an uncommon image of Romania. Almost everybody has a flat screen TV. Everybody has a mobile phone. Some people have even 2 or 3. We won't communicate with our neighbors as we did in the past, like screaming from one hill to another, well, in the countryside, of course. But now we will send the SMS, we will call, even from one room to another in the same house. If you look a bit at the statistics, we see that we have one of the fastest internet connections in Europe. And if you look at this chart here, you see that on a population of barely 20 millions, we have plus 23 millions of active mobile users. So we really talk a lot on phone. Another interesting statistic, Another interesting statistic says that 62% of the household in the rural area have internet access, while 72 of those, when nature calls, they have to go in the silence of their backyard. So all this must be a bit confusing. So I'm trying to bring a little bit of light and to conclude my presentation by quoting a foreign traveler to Romania. He came in the beginning of the 20th century. He was a French guy, and when he wrote back to describe the situation, the country, the place, to his family and friends, he said this, and pardon my French, please. Que voulez-vous? Nous sommes ici, au port de l'Orient, où tout est pris à la légère. Thank you.